I've prepared a little presentation, and this is just my sort of recap of the course that we've experienced. So, yeah, it's our centre's almost third year of existence, and it's amazing how quickly the time is flying by. And we feel quite proud of this course, and we really want to invest more in it, and it provides a kind of a driver for lots of other things. And so we're quite thankful for that, and thank you to all of you for signing up and for participating and being, really a great group of students, of participants, of fellow colleagues and lecturers. Whatever identity you want to be in this thing. Right. So how does the short course look? I've adapted this a little bit. At the start we said this, but now I think one could represent it a little bit better. So this is an idea of how the course was built and actually what you've experienced, sort of the flow of the course. First of all, in week 1, we started with workshop 1. It was also in Stias, in the other room with the comfortable chairs. And we spent the whole day, and we really started, remember we did the participant plan, so we sort of started where your knowledge was situated around the whole concept of blended teaching and learning. And then we did a fair amount of, let's call it theory work, where Sonia and myself and Leanne and Faik also joined in the participant plan, as well as Magda, led you through quite a number of exercises using SunLearn interactively in class, which I think was also an interesting way. Didn't use any PowerPoints, I think. Then we led you through a couple of conceptual things that form the pieces of the puzzle that we need to really take this thing forward. We introduced the learning designer at that first workshop. They got to know it, got to sign up for it, and sort of figured out how it works. And then in that first week, you had to complete stuff online, but you had to write your first 55-word story, which was something Leanne brought in. But I think that was wonderful. So at first it was sort of closed off. Only the facilitators could read it. Then I think I said, but why can't everybody enjoy these short little pieces of creativity? And so we opened it up, and many of you, most of you, then shared these stories as well in the forum, so that everybody could read it. So you'll see the black parts on the screen is sort of the content or the learning or the design stuff, and then the red text is more or less the activities or the kind of assessment or formative assessment that you had to do. So that was face-to-face. Then we said goodbye to each other and we saw each other online. So from week 2 to week 5, we spent online on SunLearn. It was a week-by-week process, which is important for the design. It's a specific thing we chose. We didn't just say, there's everything, just go crazy. What we've learned, and I maybe hope you can corroborate this, is that we work in also chunk times to also pace you through activities, through time, through a start and a finish, and deadlines and those kind of things, to really complete the course as you go on. So in week 2, it was video, where you had to discover lots of things around how multimedia works. I don't know if you remember the channels, all those podcasts that I made, and what is good PowerPoint design and how that influences videos, etc. And then you had a hands-on kind of self-training, where you learned 2 pieces of software, Snagit and Camtasia Studio. And remember the activity, you had to make a 60-second video, which not everybody did, but there were some who had 60 seconds, but it doesn't matter. The whole thing was for you to really just try out for yourself and walk away, like the colleague at the back said this morning. He didn't really know if it was possible even, but then, yes, he did it. And so that you put a peg in the ground. I can make a video. And we've given feedback on all the videos, and it was wonderful what everybody achieved. And so from here on, we just grow. So that was the activity or the kind of assessment that we're giving feedback on. I gave audio feedback as well through digital file, just to show, also to show possibilities with the use of audio video for example, feedback on assessment. Then we sprang into Ice Spring in week 3, and the activity there was a SCORM lesson, and you guys had to create these things, learn the tool, also again on your own, but with lots of help and support from the community as well. I hope you saw that. people helping each other, solving problems, the facilitators also coming in. So I think that was a good example of how a learning community can work. It's not just the teacher saying, but it's also the participants, the students, helping each other. I think that came through quite nicely there. And then we opened the whole world of Google, where Faik and Ilse took over. And it's just amazing that at the end, everyone created their own blog. Now there's talk of maybe involving other colleagues to help write on the blog, maybe about things in biology or what, I don't know, can't remember what the specific theme was. But then actually having something that you can use in real life. And I think everybody did an amazing job with their own blogs. And you had to write your second 55-word story, which was published very publicly on the blog. And that was also quite nice. I think many of you should become writers, but maybe you are already. After Google, we went back to our own system, which is SunLearn. So the focus was back to a more institutional system. It was thinking about assessment, more specifically e-assessment, and then very specifically around the issue of peer assessment through the workshop tool, which you all also engaged with, to put it mildly, and learned quite an intricate tool that does very specific things. And I think there were great discussions also on why I will use it and why I won't use it. And I think that's also important. It's also very important to decide that you shouldn't use some things, as it is important that you should use some things. And then the activity there was actually creating a workshop exercise. And then week 6 arrived, and today's workshop, which is workshop 2, that we started with, I think, quite a successful exercise of the jigsaw, where we now took what everybody was learning and even maybe struggling with on their own, online, with a bit of support, now taking the time together and really going into a bit more detail. Again, bringing people's thoughts together as to what do we do with these tools now? What do they afford? Technical issues, and we made these wonderful summaries, and it was involving everybody in the process. I really liked that exercise. And then we started with the nitty-gritty, because it all needs to go back to your lives, to your modules, to your work, to your activities. And one can keep it up there in the air and, think about all these things and dream about them and thinking, I'll still do it. It's another thing to then actually put pen to paper or, fingers to keyboard and start designing something. So we worked back to the Learning Designer, the tool that we found, and we had an introduction to it, an example, a demonstration, and then you were working away and starting this process of designing something new. And as I've said, it might be something that's new to all of us, because we are all becoming designers now, blended teaching and learning designers, and this is a tool that could help one. And then I was pleasantly surprised that when I thought everybody was sort of like, why do we have to do it? Most have almost done their stuff, That was great. And really engaged, and we had to pry you away from your computers. And then, at the end, we went through the assessment. I think that was a very good exercise with the yellow pages. Again, a thinking tool, thinking through what we are doing, connecting it back to everything, and preparing for week 7, which is the one coming, which is the week for the capstone assignment that needs to be in on Sunday night. While I was this morning thinking of how one should summarize, and this is now another view on what we've done, and I think I drew something similar like this on the flip chart. I don't know if you remember last time, because I myself was trying to figure out what are we actually saying, because especially that first day, it's quite hectic, because we are, we dealt with all those things, and how they fit together, I think, is quite important to understand. So I've made, sort of tried to make this my first take, my first draft on drawing everything together, and how one could now incorporate conceptually all these things we've been dealing with. So you'll see we have learning at the bottom, teaching at the top. You always see, or sometimes see, this image of teach, learn. Have you seen that one? It's like the different sides of the coin. But it's very interesting that Diana Lorillard, who's our hero, she disputes this. And I think it's something interesting to think of. She says it's not teaching and learning isn't necessarily the same coin in both sides. That we need to connect them, but that they are actually pretty much, they are also very different. Okay. So this is my understanding, and this is the premise, I think, on which many of these things were built. So this is what I'm forwarding now, again. And then you can criticize or give feedback or whatever, and see if this makes sense. So if we take learning, the first thing is the big blue circle around. I forgot to label it actually, but the big blue circle I want to label knowledge. Okay, knowledge is the most important thing. That is what undergirds and drives this whole process. Knowledge is what needs to be learned and what needs to be taught. So if we think of learning at the bottom, we've learned that we have, from psychology and sociology, broadly speaking, two ways of seeing learning as mostly individual, and some describe it as more social. Right? And what we've said, and this is something that CTL, our sister center, is also saying, is that one shouldn't choose the one or the other, but rather look at a more holistic view of what learning is. So you incorporate the individualized aspects of how learning works, as well as the social. And that is where the 6 ways of learning was born and come from. And you can see how I've color-coded the individual types of learning are these yellowish types, the acquisition, inquiry, practice, and production. And the more social ones, discussion and collaboration. And the beautiful thing is that Lorillard does the same. She sees it in this way as well, through the conversational framework. So I think we got it there. And then the glue between these two, actually the thing that drives the learning, as we've discovered, are these words: engagement, to modulate, to articulate. There are other words, but those are the most important ones. To modulate means to test things inside yourself, between people. And so all of these processes of inquiry, discussion, collaboration, all of them actually try and to do that, to engage students, to help them to modulate knowledge, and to articulate what they're saying. And this is where assessments come in, production, practice. Okay. Now, how do we enact, how do we design to get all of that to happen? And this is where the teaching process comes in. Now, the green circle is a design framework. So it's the concept of remember many things when you're thinking about your teaching. And we did the ILDF, the Integrated Learning Design Framework. It's all in the notes. And it has all those different phases where it's very important, for example, to do very good analysis, to understand your students, to understand your subject, to understand more or less the things that Leanne has prompted you in this yellow paper. Sorry. So it ingirds the whole bigger thing. Remember, there's a process that you go through, and you repeat because you evaluate the whole time. Okay. And then you find those 4 blue blocks with the white writing on. And these are the 4 specific, almost conceptual tools that we dealt with, and that now all need to come together. The first one is constructive alignment. That's that so-called Morton's template, where you have to remember that your outcomes are very critical. The assessment, the outcomes, and how you build teaching and learning activities should speak to one another. That is critical. Okay, that's the first rule or whatever. Constructive alignment. Then we said, let's look at learning technologies, because this is specifically what we are trying to do now. So in the whole idea of blending different ways of learning, we can use learning technologies or EdTech, etc. What are they? But more importantly, how do they work? And that is where this concept of affordances then becomes very, very important. We need to understand what do these learning technologies afford before we can use them in a design to create teaching that will somehow make these different ways of learning come alive for the students. And that is the blended learning package as I see it. So we teach and we do it by design, specifically activities, so that learning that happens. So I hope that makes sense. I'm starting to believe it myself as well, the more I talk about it. Right, then I had another thought, and this is, some of you might have joined the whole idea of legitimation code theory, Carl Mayton, and all of that. So actually we did have this sort of in mind, and I decided to draw a little wave. So he talks about how knowledge is represented in lectures, but it could also be in courses like our one. And we did deliberately think about, and actually that's a little bit wrong, I shouldn't have used SD, which is semantic density. Maybe semantic gravity would have been better. But anyway, the whole concept is that at the beginning of the course, we start relatively high with regards to the conceptual around blended learning. It's quite new, it's quite foreign. But I think the whole thing is that we try to unpack with examples and unpacking these different pieces, and then moving closer to your own lived reality, where, for example, had to share your stories and start to share about your own thing. And then each of the weeks, we start with the conceptual about like videos, how that fits into blended learning, and then we unpack it and we have it and apply it to your own reality. You have to create a video. The same with iSpring, make your own one. Same with Google, do your own blog. And so it goes. And so through these 7 weeks, the whole idea is to build, construct knowledge that builds on each other and isn't just these silos. And so hopefully at this workshop here and with this capstone assignment, where you have to take it all up, integrate it, write something, produce something, you will definitely be on a higher understanding of blended learning and teaching as you were 7 weeks ago. So that's just another view also on how one can reflect on this whole thing. The last slide is what is the way forward? The first thing is please complete all activities. There are still participants who haven't completed everything. This is now apart from the capstone assignment. Please do all the activities, and we'll give you feedback, even though it's a bit late and not specific to the week. So if you can find the time, just do all activities. The capstone assignment has been described. That's the thing from now until next week that you can do, and I think will be quite useful. And then what happens after that? And this has also already been mentioned. Now, how do we stay connected to each other, to the facilitators, to the knowledge, etc.? And we've mentioned that Sunlearn course will always, as long as the server is there, will be there. And can I just say that it's quite important, because if you ever, in a year or two's time, for example, lose your Camtasia Studio or get a new computer, etc., then you can come back to the course and just download Camtasia again, and you find the license key again. All right, that it's becoming a bit of an issue. People 3 years ago now want, losing stuff, and now what now? So the course is sort of your lifeline to all of this, the knowledge, but also, the necessary links and keys and stuff like that. And then, I don't know if everybody has joined the Facebook page, but that's also a good way to go. Join the group there on Facebook, and that's also a way to keep in touch. And then, obviously, just hopefully you've made connections between each other, with the coordinators, with us, etc. And that's just keep that going. I don't think I've mentioned the in-service learning opportunity. So by raising of hands, who would like 5,000 Rand?
Yeah.
Oh man, isn't it worth that much? Right, if you want 5,000 Rand, okay, all you have to do is spend another 20 hours after this course now. The capstone assignment doesn't count. So once you've completed all the course assignment activities, after that you apply anything and you work for 20 hours on blended learning in your own module, or helping somebody else with introducing learning technologies into the curriculum or whatever. It can take many forms. Then you just write a little report on what you've done. It doesn't have to be long, and give me just some kind of proof that you've actually done it or designed something or whatever, and I will give you 5,000 Rand. That's how it works. So it's a bit of an incentive. The whole idea is it's kind of in service, because we don't want the momentum to die down now. You guys are now on the roll, so use it. We found that very few people actually do it. I don't know why. And there's enough money for all of you, but people just don't apply. Proxy. No.
Is that 5,000 rand for your research fund or for
No,
yourself?
for you.
No, it's actually very difficult to pay that kind of money into a departmental account, research account. It has to be your salary. So sorry.
So can you spend time creating videos?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything
Developing stuff for you.
that's to do with blended learning, blended teaching learning. Okay, I'm glad that got you going. So who wants that 5,000 rand?
I've never got
Right. Okay. Last words. Then we'll end the day. I think what is the way forward? What are the next steps? Okay. So what we can do, we can just have all the attention, everybody's attention. I think we must look at the idea of scholarship. Now, scholarship has, is a continuum. Up until just doing things a new way and telling people about it, up into becoming case studies for our yearly case study book. I think all of you have wonderful ideas. Think it through, write it up with the help of the coordinators in case studies that others can learn about it. We've got a whole publication of case studies. And then we've got our in-house soccer conference, which is upcoming, which I think will be great if you guys can put in abstracts on the work that you're doing now, that you're going to maybe evaluate and then come tell us about in October, was it November, October. And there's Altasa as well, which is the national conference, which is actually an international conference this year. That's in Cape Town, UCT, so it's close by. It's a wonderful opportunity to put in abstracts, to present there, maybe with a coordinator even. See if you can drum up some kind of research idea and proposal. Do something, research your practice, and go tell people about it. And then that list becomes writing articles, becoming part of research projects, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so that's more or less. Altasa is somewhere in November.
22 to 25 November
Yes.
in Cape Town.
And the abstracts are due at the end of the month,
Yeah.
31st of May. Yeah. So you need to get cracking if you want to do that. All right, and that is it from my side. So big word of thanks also to facilitators, Leanne, Alex, Faik, Olma, Ilse, and I hope I'm not leaving out Sonia in her absence, Magda. And to all of you who've been wonderful, also to the other blended learning coordinators who spent lots of time coming in and assisting with this important work, building the connections, helping out. So to everyone, big word of thanks, Gavin as well, today specifically. So let's give us a